Alan?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do have one addition under 4.4A4 under my report, and it's to do with the Carson District Association and Agricultural Society Development Permit to DP 2018-160, and there should be a hard copy, two-page hard copy in front of your chairs. Oh, sorry, just the RFD in front of your chairs there. So,
Thank you. Anything else? We have a motion to adopt. Thanks, Ben. All in favor? Motion carried. The minutes from the December 18th regular council meeting were circulated. Does anyone see any errors or omissions? Can we have a motion to adopt? Thanks, Tom. All in favor? Motion carried. We also had the minutes from the December 18th public hearing for bylaw 2018-22. Any errors or omissions? Thanks, Jason. All in favor? Motion carried. We have an RFD for bylaw 2018-39. Good morning.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. So this bylaw is a first reading to amend the land use bylaw 2016-01 in order to update section 8.6, the dwelling garden suite, which includes amendments to the specific use regulations, name, and definitions. So in May 2018, I had come to a planning and priorities meeting and discussed with all of you about how we were doing with the garden suite section since adoption of the LUB, and had mentioned that 9 out of 10 garden suite applications that we had processed had variance requests, including setbacks, maximum size, and existing dwelling types. So at your direction, I drafted a new garden suite section with a new name called dwelling accessory, and that's what this first reading is about. So staff are recommending option 1, that council grant first reading for bylaw 2018-39 to amend the land use bylaw 2016-01 to update section 8.6 for the dwelling garden suite, which includes amendments to the specific use regulations, name, and definitions. Option 1 includes 2 motions. Motion 1, that bylaw 2018-39 be given first reading, and motion 2, that a public hearing for bylaw 2018-39 be scheduled for March 5th, 2019 at 9 a.m. in the Wheatland County Council chambers. Option 2 is that bylaw 2018-39 be refused, with a motion that bylaw 2018-39 be refused, and option 3, that council approve an alternate recommendation. So as I mentioned, staff is recommending option 1 for approval of first reading and a motion for public hearing in March. Thank you.
Thanks, Suzanne. Does anybody have any questions or discussion?
I'll move option 1, the council grant first reading for bylaw 2018-39.
Discussion? All in favor of the motion? Motion carried.
Public hearing for bylaw 2018-39 for March 5th at 9 a.m. Wheatland County Council chambers.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Thanks, Suzanne. Look at development permit 2018-154.
Okay, good morning.
Good morning.
I have a development permit for a fitness class, which will be located within a home in the Lakes of Merrifield in DC 7. It would be defined as a home-based business type 2, and it is discretionary within cell 1 of DC 7. Location is Plan 071-0284, Block 115 in the Lakes of Muirfield. So this is a development permit, and because it is within the DC 7, it's a direct control, and so council has been advised as being the deciding body for this, hence why it's not going to MPC in this case. The recommendation that staff is providing is that council choose option 1 to approve DP 2018-154 for an indoor fitness class defined as home-based business type 2, subject to the conditions of Appendix A of the development permit report. The proposal for the home-based business is to maintain a fitness class within the home located within the Lakes of Muirfield. It's intended to operate 5 days a week, Monday to Friday, with 3 sessions a day, 2 one-on-one classes and 1 small group of 3 people, for a total of 5 business visits per day, which is compliant with the requirements for a home-based business type 2. No deliveries are required for this business, and classes will run all year, approximately at 8 a.m., 10 a.m., 5:45 p.m. Throughout the day for 45 minutes. Equipment used would be for free weights, treadmill, battle rope, Bosu balls, and your typical workout equipment within the business of the home. Parking is intended to be maintained within the landowner's own driveway. It is anticipated, as per the landowner's letter of intent, that many of the attendees will walk to the property, as it is intended to be circulated strictly within the Lakes of Muirfield, and so many of the residents would be ideally using this business. No business vehicle is proposed for the applied, and no signage as well. All promotional materials proposed to be done through online and social media. Going down to the location. So as previously mentioned, it is within the Lakes of Muirfield, and it's in Cell 1 of Direct Control District 7. So this is the circulation map that I did to adjacent landowners, and then just a comparison map as to where it is in comparison to the rest of the cells within the district here. So as previously mentioned, it is a home-based business type 2, and so as per the land use bylaw, I was able to examine that particular section. Primarily within a home-based business type 2, it is supposed to be located within the residence itself. There's going to be only up to 5 business visits per day, and so the applicant has suggested that this is the maximum amount. If anything does change with regards to this application, when they do come in for their 2-year permit renewal, which is required for a home-based type 2, the staff will re-examine it and look at whether any concerns or complaints came in during those 2 years that their permit was issued for, and then we would base our decision to renew it off of that analysis. So ideally, if the business is intended to expand or go further than a home-based type 2, we would have to re-examine it. And unfortunately, in this case, Cell 1 does only allow for a home-based type 2, so anything past that that is either more intensive than what a home-based type 2 is would not be permitted, and they would have to maintain it within those parameters of the home-based type 2 as per the land use bylaw. During the circulation process of this application, staff did not receive any comments or concerns from adjacent landowners, so there were none brought forward. We did circulation internally to our departments, and the only comment we received back was from Protective Services, and they just wanted to make sure that the Homeowners Association for Lakes of Muirfield was circulated accordingly to provide any comments on the potential issues with parking and the traffic that would come through with this business potentially. As previously mentioned, it is intended to be contained within the Lakes of Muirfield residential area. It's not intended to be circulated outside of it for business operation. However, parking is still required as per the home-based business type 2. And the HOA was circulated, and we didn't receive any comments from them. So at this point in time, nothing of concern from them has come forward. Externally, we did circulate to Alberta Health Services for clarity on their end, and they had no major comments or concerns other than their standard request that provide the general sanitation guidelines and comply with all those provincial regulations. It was also circulated to Rocky View County, and they provided no comments or concerns as well for this application. With that being said, staff is recommending approval for this application, with option 1 to approve DP 2018-154 for an indoor fitness class business defined as home-based type 2. Council does have three options. One is to approve the development permit. Second is to refuse the application with reasons given. And option 3 is to provide an alternate recommendation of MPC's choosing. These are the conditions that I've added for the particular application. I did want to note that if council does decide to approve this, I do need to add the temporary permit expiration date on here. I forgot to add it on. So there would be a 7th condition and would read as development permit to be issued for a 2-year term expiring January 8th, 2021. So I would request that that be added on as per the land use bylaw requirements. Otherwise, the development permit would be issued solely for the business, home-based business type 2. No variances have been granted for this application. The development shall proceed according to Direct Control 7 District, Cell 1. No permanent development shall occur on or over any utility right-of-way or easement. And the business is to remain consistent with the application and the applicant's letter of intent. And the application is to remain consistent with the application and letter of intent. Any change to the use or intensity does require an approval from the development authority and a revision of the development permit previously issued. Thank you.
Thanks, Odessa. Any questions?
I'd like to put a motion forward to approve DP 2018-154 as an indoor fitness class business defined as home business space type 2 with the updated conditions.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion? Motion carried. Thanks, Odessa. We have DP 2018-146.
Okay, so I have another development permit within the Lakes of Murfield. This is to change the use of an existing building located within the district, which is to provide liquor sales in a portion of the existing building, which would be approximately 677 square feet for use of the liquor sales. Location is Plan 064-4100, Lot 4, Block 8, and it's within the Lakes of Murfield in Cell 7 of District 7. Recommendation from staff is that council choose option 1 to approve DP 2018-146 for approximately 677 square feet of an existing building to be used for liquor sales, defined as liquor store, and for signage on the building and property located within Plan 064-4100, Lot 4, Block 8, subject to the conditions in Appendix A of the Development Permit Report. So I'm just going to scroll down to the imagery here while I read through some of the key items. So as previously mentioned, it's in Cell 7 of Direct Control 7 for the Lakes of Murfield. So it's just right off of Range Road 264. This is the circulation plan. Oh, got a little jived down here. The circulation plan, and it was circulated from Cell 7 up here. Fortunately, everything got shifted down. So there we go. So in this particular case, we have the area. It's probably better on your laptops there in your reports, but there is a small section here highlighted in yellow indicating the area proposed to have the change of use to a liquor store, and that's within the existing building here. There we go. And this is just an outlay of what it would look like for the area intended for the liquor store. So the applicant is proposing to change the use of an existing building on the parcel and develop 677 square feet for liquor sales. The applicant has indicated the portion of the building proposed will strictly be for sales of alcohol only. No on-site consumption has been proposed. The products intended to be sold are beer, wine, coolers, and spirits, all sourced through the AGLC licensed distributors. There are to be 2 deliveries per week in the summer months and 1 per week in the winter. There will be 2 full-time employees and 3 part-time employees, with the store operating 7 days a week, year-round, from 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. On statutory holiday, the operation will be from 11 a.m. to 6 p.m. Parking is currently available on the property, and appropriate stalls will be designated for the use of the liquor store, as indicated on the site plan. Signage on the existing building and the property is also intended. Examples of these are attached to the report. So in my analysis, in this particular case, we have it defined as a liquor store, which is a discretionary use within Cell 7 of the Lakes of Muirfield. So I examined not only the Cell 7 requirements, but also looking at the liquor store requirements as well. Because it is a commercial venture, I needed to ensure that there was not only appropriate parking, but also loading zones for the product that would be delivered on behalf of the business. So in doing so, I was able to determine that there is sufficient parking both for the liquor store and the entire lot here, as well as appropriate loading zones, which are required as per the parking and delivery and loading requirements of the land use bylaw. They have indicated them just on the map here. There is a loading door for the liquor store itself, and so that'll be used as a requirement from the land use bylaw. As well, the development regulations for the building itself, it needs to be compliant with the rest of the existing residential development, that it needs to be cohesive with the existing facade and design of the building, and it does. It was originally built for the Lakes of Muirfield, and so it does fit in very nicely with the existing structures that are currently within the subdivision there. I also did a site visit just to take a quick look to see the property and to provide a bit of a visual. So this is on 264 here. This is the back end of the building. This is looking from the parking lot to the front of the building there. It's a little bit difficult to see, but there is quite a bit of snow piled up, but the parking lot extends out a little bit further. And we have the side here. And so this section here, based off of the site plan, would be used as the liquor store component. So, and then I've also included the proposed letter for the application, just detailing it even further from the applicant, as well as the proposed owners of that liquor store. And so it just has more detail. With regards to the conditions for this particular application, let's see if I can get back up to the main part. A number of conditions were put on this, and it's intended to comply with the land use bylaw and the requirements intended for the liquor sales, as well as direct control District 7. So the permit would be issued for the 677 square foot liquor store defined as liquor sales, as well as signs requiring a development permit. No variances have been granted for this application. The development shall proceed according to Direct Control 7, Cell 7 requirements, and all the provisions of the land use bylaw. The application for signage shall remain consistent with the application and submitted documentation. So as part of this report, there were a number of examples of how the signage would look within the property in order to maintain the architecture guidelines for Lakes of Muirfield, as well as the application for liquor sales to remain consistent with the application and letter of intent. And again, any changes or use to the intensity will require approval from the development authority. So if there's intended time changes, use, or even the increase in the size of the liquor store, development permit would have to come back to us and be revised. A couple notes of importance here. All construction shall conform to Alberta Safety Code regulations. Development shall meet all provincial and federal legislation, including recommendations provided by Alberta Health Services for this application. So during our circulation, I didn't receive any concern or comments from adjacent landowners. However, Alberta Health Services was circulated, and they did have a couple notes on here that they wanted to keep in mind. Again, this is provincial, so we don't have any enforcement ability through this, but they are required as the landowner and applicant to ensure that they comply with all the Public Health Act and any of the comments received from Alberta Health Services. These have also been passed on to the applicant and the future owner for that liquor sales store. So they'll have to obtain a valid food permit from AHS, as well as ensuring all the groundwater and surface waters are not polluted or impacted during this operation. So as part of the application, essentially, if any of these things are not met by through Alberta Health Services, the development permit does become null and void. It should also be noted that the building would also have to ensure that they have appropriate building code requirements and are upgraded accordingly as per the Safety Code Act if necessary. So with that being said, there are three options for Council's consideration. Option 1 is to approve DP 2018-146 for the liquor sales and for signage on the building and property. Option 2 is to refuse the application. And option 3 is to provide alternate recommendation, should say to Council's choosing, not MPC. Thank you.
Thanks, Odessa. Any questions? Jason?
No question, just put the motion on the floor that council choose option 1 to approve DP 2018-146 for a liquor store in Lyelta.
Lakes of Muirfield. Discussion?
I'd support that as it's a great step forward for the community, for the subdivision, and for the hamlet of Lyelta. I think this and the next one coming as well. It's nice to see it happening, so.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion? Motion carried. We have development permit 2018-147.
All right, so this is the development permit for a convenience store, which is going to be located on the remainder portion of the existing building that I previously discussed. It'll take up approximately 1,779 square feet. And its location, again, is in the Lakes of Muirfield, Plan 064-4100, Lot 4, Block 8. Recommendation from staff is that council choose option 1 to approve DP 2018-147 for approximately 1,779 square feet of an existing building to be used as a convenience store and restaurant, and for signage on the building and property. And it would be to the conditions in Appendix A of the development permit report. So for this development permit, it has two components to it. We have the convenience store, as well as what we are defining as a restaurant. It is more or less a cafe that they're intending to have within it. However, the most suitable definition as per land use bylaw was restaurant, because our only outdoor cafe definition is referencing the use of a building outside of the interior of it, so it wasn't as applicable in this case. So the cafe proposed is going to be serving non-alcoholic drinks, sandwiches, and pastries, and it is going to be contained strictly within the section of the building for the convenience store. So it'll be two kind of component uses within this 1,700 square feet. The products intended to be sold are general grocery items, fresh farm to fork produce, hardware and pharmacy items, and convenience food items. A small section, again, as previously mentioned, will be used as the cafe, where breakfast, lunch, coffee, tea, cold drinks, and pastries will be served for consumption on site. There are intended to be 4 deliveries per week in the summer months and 2 per week in the winter from Wallace and Carey Deliveries. There will be 4 full-time employees and 6 part-time employees, with the store operating 7 days a week, year-round, from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m., and on statutory holidays from 9 to 6 p.m. Parking is currently available on the property, and appropriate stalls will be designated for the use of the convenience store and cafe, as indicated on the site plan. Signage on the existing building and property is also intended. Examples are attached in the report. So as per the previous application, the signage hasn't changed. It would all be the same style in order to remain cohesive with the existing building, as well as the Lakes of Muirfield architectural guidelines. So going down to the site plan here, just to show specifically what section of the building. So we have the site plan here, and it just again highlights the 1,700 square feet as well as the stalls intended for use. I went and looked through our parking and loading requirements in the land use bylaw, and they have provided more than enough parking for the store and the cafe. As the cafe, there would need to be seating according to the number of tables. And as per the site plan here, we have 4 tables for the cafe, and then we have the rest of the use as the convenience store there. There is a covered patio. However, it has been indicated within the letter of intent that that isn't going to be used. If it is, they would need to come back for an appropriate development permit for an outdoor cafe. At this point in time, it is going to be defined as a restaurant, maintaining it within the building itself and not outside. And that would be for service of the food and drink. So again, because there is going to be deliveries, we need to ensure that this particular use is going to have enough space for loading. So there is a loading door here, and that's the main entrance there for the convenience store. And so that would be used and sufficient as per the land use bylaw. So in addition, convenience store and restaurant, again, are discretionary uses within Cell 7 of Direct Control District 7. So they are being brought forward to council because of that. Just looking at the analysis here, again, the building is the same as the liquor store, so it does meet the building requirements and design that's required for this district, as well as, again, the restaurant and convenience store requirements for parking and loading, as well as the intended use. And so it is compliant through my analysis with the land use bylaw with that respect. Again, Alberta Health Services was circulated for this, and they provided very similar comments as they did with the liquor store, that they just need to comply with Alberta Health Services, Public Health Act, and ensure they get all their appropriate permits through the province, as we are unable to issue those through the county. Otherwise, no neighbor circulation was received, and Rocky View County, again, had no concerns with regards to this particular application. So with that being said, I'm just going to scroll back up to the conditions. There are a number of conditions on here as well. So the permit would be issued for 1,779 square feet for the convenience store and cafe, defined as convenience store and restaurant, and signage, defined as signs requiring a development permit. No variances have been granted. The development shall proceed according to Direct Control 7, Cell 7. Application for signage shall remain consistent with the application and submitted documentation, as well as the convenience store and cafe. They must remain consistent with the application and letter of intent. And again, if any changes or use to these two uses occurs throughout the period, they will need to come back and revise their development permit application. And as per the previous development permit that was approved for the liquor store, there are notes on this one as well to ensure that it conforms with Alberta Safety Code regulations, meets all provincial and federal legislation, including the recommendations provided by Alberta Health Services for this application. So with that being said, Council has three options: to approve DP 2018-147, to refuse the application with reasons given, or option 3, to provide an alternative recommendation of Council's choosing. Thank you.
Thanks, Odessa. Any questions? Scott?
I'd like to put a motion forward to approve DP 2018-147 for approximately 1,779 square foot, and all the rest that's on there too.
Okay. Any discussion?
I just got a question, like, how much rigmarole is going to be involved if they want to use the covered deck there, put a couple coffee tables out in the summertime? I'm just wondering, is it going to be onerous on the owner? Because I mean, you can't hit a golf ball to anybody close to there, so I'm pretty sure the clinking of coffee cups aren't going to bother a lot of people. I just would like to know.
Through the chair, no, that's a good question. So the outdoor cafe itself is primarily defined as, you're actually serving people outside and you're providing the services outside. So, if you have tables out there and people sit out there and consume the food that they've purchased from the convenience store or from the cafe, that's not an issue. It's as soon as service comes out from outside the building and the food is being served out there as well, that's when it starts breaching into that outdoor cafe use. So it's a bit of a tight line between outdoor cafe versus restaurant, but because they had no intention, as per their letter of intent, to use that outdoor cafe area for service and functionality, the restaurant one was the most appropriate in this case. If they did want to change that, if they wanted to have summer use of it, there could be potential for a time-limited development permit that allows them to use it for a certain period of time, but it really depends on what happens, and it'll be a trial period for the first year to see, and that might be appropriate, is to come back for an outdoor cafe permit instead of a restaurant one, or 3 on one property.
Just to follow up Tom's question there, so for clarification on that, if they don't serve outside, if they just pick up their stuff and go and sit in something right now, they're fine, the way it sits.
Through the chair, that's correct. So the outdoor cafe specifically, if you have your workers outside serving them the food and the drink, and they're coming back and forth, and it's what you would typically have for a patio that you would see in, City of Calgary or even Strathmore, that's when it becomes an outdoor cafe. because you're serving food outside, you're using that back and forth. It's a funny definition to have, but it is definitely defining outdoor versus indoor use of food and beverage.
Any further discussion? Are you sure? All right, all in favor? Motion's carried. Thanks, Odessa.
Thank you for understanding, I appreciate it. Big day from Muirfield.
It is a big day.
We can talk about your questions later then. Thank you, guys.
Okay, so we'll move to my report. I'll just note a couple of things. I already talked about the CP Holiday Train in Gleason. It was an incredibly successful event. I don't think I had the details about what the support for the food banks were when I reported last time. So there was $875 in private donations, 1,350 pounds of food donated, along with the $4,000 corporate donation by Canadian Pacific Railway. And that will all be split between Wheatland County Food Bank and Siksika's Food Bank.
Just a question. What was the actual ratio, sorry?
Sorry?
What was the actual ratio, what our county brought, like the county food bank brought in and the Siksika food bank?
I believe they kind of combined everything and split it 50-50 was my understanding. Unless you heard something different.
No, I understand that, but what was, you don't know what the actual ratio was? Like,
Yeah. A lot, like, so some of the donations were taken to the Wheatland County Food Bank van because it was outside. And then a lot of them were just brought into the community center and they just kind of split them up. They did delineate a little bit because there were certain things each of the food banks required more of, like some of them had more of a certain thing, so they gave more of that to one or the other, and they just sorted that out amongst themselves, but it was very fairly divided. Those are the main things. The other thing is, Margaret has been helping kind of discuss with Rocky View County, coordinating a meeting with them between our two councils. And so two dates that they've provided are February 13th or 15th. And I just wanted to get a sense from our council if one of those would work. February 15th, we do have CMRB. There's a board meeting in the morning. Yeah, if whoever's available to make it, I think it would be good for our two councils to get together.
The 13th would be better for me.
Okay. Are you? Okay. February 13th or 15th?
During the day? Or is
Doesn't work for you.
don't screw up my Valentine's.
We wouldn't think of interrupting that. And then I wanted to just see if anybody had any preferences for what we do. I invited them, so we're hosting. I don't know if we want to meet in Strathmore. It's sort of central for the Rocky View councillors. The new convenience store. I don't know if they'll be ready for us yet. I did think about like the country farmhouse or something like that. But I did think it might be a bit far for Rocky View to travel. And would you like me to look at a different date if you two are not available? Is it? Okay. I think my understanding was Rocky View only had those two dates, but I mean, we could look further out as well. I'm open for anything. Okay, well, maybe we'll look into that and see if that's an option. And Alan? Let's do the 13th, because then it doesn't conflict with CMRP. Margaret, do you mind getting in touch with Bellin? All right.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Would you prefer in Strathmore, or did you want to look at Chestermere? Because when I talked to their administrative staff, they do have councillors on the other side of Calgary.
Yeah,
so we could look at we could look at Chestermere maybe.
Sure.
Is that okay with council?
Yeah. Are you okay with that, Scott, if we just do Chestermere? Okay. All right, thank you. I also, under 4.1B, there's an item for discussion regarding broadband. So last time I updated, I think I let you know that I'd gotten an update from Alan Martins with the City of Brooks regarding just kind of where we're at on that project. We do have a meeting on Friday with some of the municipalities that have expressed interest. We did have a previous motion that council had approved that Wheatland County continue participation in the Southern Alberta Dark Fiber opportunity to enhance broadband services with no financial commitment at this time. What I'm asking is for council to consider making a commitment to some financial commitment. At the meeting on Friday, the group that, like I believe it was Brooks and Newell that had applied for the CARES grant, they were successful in receiving $30,000 grant. But this will need to be matched by municipalities that are interested in participating in the project. Part of my rationale for participating in this is based on our economic development strategy and the identified need for increased broadband in Wheatland County. I don't, unfortunately, have an amount that we might be required to match because that will be dependent on how many municipalities commit to the project. But it's more for the essence of time, because if I go Friday and then I have to come back, like, it just slows. This process has already been kind of in the works for a couple of years, and it gets momentum and then it slows down and then it gets momentum. So any comments?
I think too, with our economic plan and to develop certain areas of the county, broadband is a very good utility. And I think a lot of future developers will be looking for something like that. I would be more than happy to put a motion on the floor to have financial aid to the project.
Discussion.
Just a question, you don't have no idea what kind of financial aid you're talking about, though, do you?
So the total required for matching is the 30,000. We have to match the 30,000. In the last meeting we were at, there was approximately 20 municipalities at the meeting, but I don't believe that those 20 municipalities will commit. So if all 20 committed, it would be whatever, 30,000 divided by 20. I suspect it would be more, I don't even know how to estimate, 5 to 10 municipalities that might realistically commit to it. So we could be looking at $3,000 to $6,000, or in that range would be kind of a ballpark. We could put a cap on, you know, up to 10,000, or I don't know what people.
What I was going to suggest, that you cap your motion at 10,000.
Yeah, I will take that amendment.
Of the day.
I'd support as well, as long as we have the cap, and also that there's other players in the game. I think it's key that everybody steps up, and hopefully there's some discussion there with amongst the group that maybe there's a per capita kind of thing.
Yeah.
To make it as fair as possible.
Part of the discussion at the meeting, and a lot of it's in camera, but part of the discussion in the meeting was how will we, it goes back to the same questions always, like how are we going to split up the cost, whether it will be per capita based on equalized assessment, things like that. So that has not been determined, but that is what part of this grant will be used to go towards, is doing some of that legwork and establishing sort of a formula or a format, some kind of model to base this on. One of the reasons I think it would be advantageous, we've seen in some other municipalities that have gone forward with broadband initiatives and how that has helped. Like if you look at Olds and what ONET did for them. And so in my mind, even if all 20 or even if there's a smaller proportion of municipalities that go forth with this, I think there could be some really positive economic development that could come from that project. So, and we have administration, Brian Henderson will be attending the meeting on Friday as well. So he helps assess sort of the financial implications of it as well. So there is some cost savings for the county because the line goes right by the county. If we could offset some of our tech costs or internet costs, that pays for like a good portion of the project, just that aspect of it. So.
Did you say there was a meeting this Friday?
Yes.
Would I be able to attend?
So,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh, okay. I think we RSVP'd that Brian was coming, but we can figure that out. Is there any further discussion regarding Jason's motion? All in favor? Motion's carried. Thank you. And I will update on how many municipalities are participating and obviously what the cost will be for Wheatland County. Do you have a comment?
I just have a question, Amber. It's good that we have our meeting set with Rocky View. Is there any progress made on the Strathmore Council meeting?
No, I'm going to be in touch with Pat now that we're back to have our two councils get together. Yeah. And we do, I should update as well. We have a meeting. Let me just check. February 8th, I will be meeting that kind of sub-regional economic development lunch meeting with Rocky View, Chestermere, and Strathmore as well that I had talked about during my last report. So that has been scheduled. Are there any questions about my report? It's lunch, 12 o'clock, I believe. Yeah, 12 o'clock in Chestermere at their city hall. If there's no other questions, I'll move that my report be adopted as presented. All in favor? Motion carried. Deputy Reeves report.
I have posted on the agenda, as well as we had our WADEMSA meeting last night, and we had our AGM was last night too. And it was reported that we had 3,877 calls last year, which is down 3 calls from the year before. So we're consistent with that. It's the first time we haven't had an increase in I don't know how many years. But yeah, that's, and we're in the middle of renovating our hall, so that's coming along nicely. And I got a phone call, I guess this question is for Alan, from Wendy on that Badlands racetrack. And they were notified that they were given a, what did they call it, statement of concern, the letters that were sent into the environment. They issued 18 letters of concern. I was just curious if Wheatland County received a letter. No, so evidently there's 18 of those participants have to be notified by the racetrack and their concerns addressed before they'll carry on. But 18, and if I heard it right, it was a record number for this person to take that many in. And yeah, that's all. If there's any questions, I will move my report.
Any questions?
I just had one on the December 7th. Is that the Symbiotic meeting?
Yeah.
With Rosebud? Just curious what that was.
Environmental meeting for a grant approval. I haven't heard if they got it or not. I think they didn't get it, or?
I don't know. They were supposed to know by the 20th of December,
Yeah.
so I'm assuming we haven't heard anything, but I haven't had a chance to talk to Paul yet, so.
Yeah, I haven't heard if they got it or not, but it was, I thought, a very good meeting. It was, I guess from my perspective, being there and being intimately familiar with the area and their surroundings, that's more what they wanted, was that kind of input. And yeah, I thought it was a good meeting.
Any other questions? All in favor? Motion carried. Division 1, Councillor report.
No, I apologize. I didn't get it written up even this month. It was a busy January, and I promised Margaret, a busy December. I wasn't ignoring you when you called. You called on the 2nd, and the 1st is a rough one. So we'll call a little later in the morning next time. Please. But it was a pretty slow December for me. Just the Christmas party on the 1st, council on the 4th and the 18th, and then MPC on the 11th. And then there was one other thing that I can't think of that I did, but it was pretty slow. January will definitely be busier, so that's all I have.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. Division 3.
Yeah, I had to reread. It's been a while. So the Strathmore Chamber of Commerce, I just want to, the chamber is with the News and Neighbor Awards program, and it's going to be held January 23rd at 7 o'clock. If anybody wants to go, it's actually a good evening. I've been there before. Another thing is it's tomorrow night I'm hosting a thing through economic development, kind of a webinar that extends the Roger Brooks program. Getting a good interest. The one I picked for us is getting people on the same page and pulling together, trying to get the community and all the clubs to kind of work on goals that they want and pick something as a group for our area. So I've invited all the groups and the rural from Speargrass and Carsland, as the businesses and the rural residents. So trying to get something together and work on something as a group instead of everybody working at their own goals. And yeah, that's about it. So I want you to motion that you accept my report as read.
Just further to that, if any councillors are interested, I think
Yeah.
those webinars are all week at
Yeah,
different.
it was listed on the website, and Carslands is tomorrow at 7 o'clock at the Carsland Hall.
Are there any questions? All in favor? Motion carried. Division 4.
December was a relatively slow month. I think the only thing I really want to highlight on the report is probably, number one, I want to really give kudos to Reeve Link for the work she did on the Galician train. It was a lot of last minute kind of stuff, and it turned out really what she participated in turned out really well. The train, I think, is, after seeing it, is a good thing. Now, I'm not sure if we can look at getting it in Carsland, because I think if we could get it closer to the city, the amount of publicity we could get for the county, and especially for the west side of the county, I think would be absolutely spectacular. And I don't know if we can get any buy-in without having the nation involved, but I can see this thing being, like in Carsland, I could easily see 8,000 to 10,000 people showing up to this thing, because it's got the area there. It's just well suited for it. The city, people in the city are dying for something like this time of year. So,
Number for the person that they contacted. So if you get that name to me, we can maybe write a letter. And also, it's been developing, like they pick different communities every year. So it may not be next year. I don't know, maybe they've already chosen, but we should definitely get it, get that contact.
yeah, and So other than that, I think my notes are self-explanatory, and having said that, I move my report as submitted.
Any questions for Tom?
I just have one comment. Would council entertain a motion to send a letter to CP requesting that
Consideration
posted again in
first.
Gleason or Carsland or somewhere in the county?
Do you want to make that motion, Donna? Oh,
I'll
sorry, you're
move
Tom?
that administration makes, oh, okay, sorry, that Reeve Link sends a letter to CP to see if we can, the possibilities of getting either Gleason or Carsland, preferably Carsland, on the list for having the train to stop.
Any discussion? All in favor? Motion carried. Division 5.
Good morning. Pretty quiet again in December. We had, the biggest one was a CMRB servicing meeting, and then the Peter Calthorpe vision of future planning for cities. I think there's some good information in there that gives us, for working with the bigger municipalities, what they see as development for them versus what we see. Kind of totally different, but we can utilize a little bit in both sides. Their future is no cars and public transportation. And some interesting stuff over Christmas. You hear them talking about having, extending the line out to even Chestermere, how close they are because the boundaries are touching. And she was talking about that. So we'll see what happens out of that. Kind of goes with what they're talking about too. So yeah. Any questions? Other than that, I will make a motion to accept my report as presented.
All in favor? Motion carried. Division 7.
Yes, thank you. It's all on, my report's all on nothing. The only thing I'll add to that is we should know in the first 2 weeks of January, hopefully next week, whether or not we've been successful with our bid for the $200,000 grant for SEWA to do their siting and geotech on our siting locations for the waste energy plant. And Drumheller District Solid Waste also had their organizational meeting on the 20th, and they've motion was put forward to leave the executive as it was in 2018. So I'm still sitting as chair for that organization also. So, and if there's no questions, I'll move my report.
Excellent. Any questions? All in favor? Motion's carried. Good morning, Alan.
My report's attached. I don't believe I have anything to add to that, except for one thing. I have a family matter that I need to take care of on January 18th, so I won't be here on the Friday, the 18th. So other than that, the report's there if there's any questions.
Does anybody have any questions?
On your calendar, February 27th, municipal elected officials course, what is, I can't remember hearing about it. Refresh my memory.
Yes, so we're required to do 2 courses. One is involves safety, and that's what that one will be. And then there's also another one that we're going to be doing, which will involve elected officials to do with emergency management. So there's going to be 2 of those that we're required to do. We have to do it within, I think it's 8 months of January. So.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
from Bill E.
Pardon?
That's from Bill E.
The one is, yeah, for emergency management, but then we're also required to do a safety orientation with you folks as well. So. Safety one, I think, is about 3 hours. It's to do with the new legislation that came out last year, to do with bullying and things like that in the workplace. So, yeah. Most of our, I think 98% of our staff have taken it, but council needs to take it as well. Mackenzie's taken it. She knows all about it.
We have to take it? Oh, good.
It's mandatory, yes.
Alan, I know I talked to you about this morning, but just an update on GFL on the lawyer status, just for all council, and from that, please.
Yeah, so I've been contacting Keith Wilson's office, the law firm in Edmonton, to do with the compost facility. I have not received a response, unfortunately, yet, but I'll keep trying. As soon as I hear from them, I'll let you know. He did indicate previously that he would not be available to do any work on this file until April, May of 2019, and I think previously council was okay with that, but that's kind of where that's at.
My only concern with that, and it's a major one, is if we can't get a hold of him by next council meeting, maybe we should bring some other options back. And maybe if you can just check the referrals and see if he's hard to get a hold of on a regular basis.
Yeah, I certainly can do that. Like previously, he was no problem. I had no problem getting a hold of him. He actually phoned me a few times and that. So, but I know that he's deep into this file, so maybe that's perhaps it. And he was away for a couple weeks before Christmas too. So.
Are there any other questions for MCA?
I got a question for Alan. That mandatory one, that's on the 27th of February, right, in the afternoon? What happens if you don't take it?
Then we'll get you on another one in the spring, because we'll be doing one for our summer hires.
Okay.
So, yeah, we can get you in another one.
Okay, because that's the day that they're booking for me to do that presentation to Starland County that afternoon, so.
Not a problem. We have, I think it's 6 or 8 months to do it. So I just felt it would be prudent if we could do it at the same time as we had another meeting. So, and I think maybe Deputy Reeve Kester might be away at that time too. So don't worry, we'll get you in another one if that one doesn't work. Yes, Madam Chair. So with the new radio station in town, our communications professional, Mackenzie, has been in contact with them and has a recommendation for council to consider to utilize the radio as a form of advertising, as information sharing as well. I think we may have used them a little bit for some information sharing, but no advertising. Yeah, so.
The radio coverage doesn't get the whole county, I don't think. Do they tandem up with Drumheller, or is there a way to get the whole county?
It's actually I was just talking to Clarence Koistra, and he said they own kind of, if the county was a clock, they own 12 to 9, and actually the kind of Scott's Corner, you get Olds stronger than Strathmore, because I'll get it all the way to Brooks, but I can't get it northwest of town.
I get it very weak at my
Yeah.
place, yeah.
So it would be actually the Olds channel on the same wavelength that you would have to get, or a different channel.
So we can certainly look into that. I don't know if you're aware, Drumheller, the radio station Drumheller just sold to a different company, parent company. So that may change things, but I don't know. Let us look into that a little bit. So if council's not comfortable with approving this at this time, we can do a little more research and bring it back, or it's up to council, I suppose.
Through the chair, this isn't our only means, this is just one of them. So if it doesn't cover it all, it'll get out in another. It's no big deal.
I don't have a problem approving it now. It's what we have. It's just that we can continue looking to fill in the other spots.
I think it's very effective. Well, even at my house, I can barely get it, but when it coming into town or whatever, I get lots. And definitely, they have lots of local information, learning about anti-idling bylaws and things like that. And that being said, I would be happy to make a motion to approve the communications as presented.
The report's attached. It's a lot of charts and graphs and maps, and I guess that's what I like. Hopefully council's okay with that. If there's any questions, I can entertain those at this time.
We have a motion to accept the report. Thanks, Ben. All in favor? Motion carried. We had an addition to the agenda for Carsland Ag Society Development Permit refund with an RFD circulated this morning.
So this one just pertains to a refund of a permit for construction of an outdoor rink, which at this point will not proceed. So they're just asking for a refund on their fees. There is a letter that they sent requesting, at this time we are requesting a refund of $500. Council or staff fully supports this and would recommend that council approve the refund of the permit fee for this development. Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion that council refund the development permit for the fee of $500 to the Carsland District Ag and Association and Ag Society. But I do have a question on this. Is it common practice to charge the ag societies for development permits?
In the past, no. In the past, up until about 2 years ago, there was never a fee or permit required for county-owned lands. And at the time, council, under recommendation of staff, moved forward with saying any development in the county, whether it's county-owned land or not, will require a permit. So, because why treat one different than the other? So in the past, if it's on county land and it's ag society, council has been very forgiving and waived the fees similar to this. So, but that's the process that we follow. So I think it's important for everybody to be treated the same and fairly. So if it's a private individual has to get a permit, then we should have to get a permit, or the ag societies have to get a permit, understanding they're nonprofit for sure.
It does give an opportunity for public input into projects as well. What?
Well, you can still have the permit process and things, but the local councillor could still put a motion on the floor to waive the permit at time of, you know, if there's public interest into doing that, yeah. But some of them we don't see either, so.
So typically we encourage the ag societies and nonprofits to submit a letter, you know, for those types of things. Similar to we do like for a community hall, if they want gravel or whatever, we encourage them to do that, and then council makes that decision. So.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion? All in favor of Donna's motion? Motion's carried.
The corporate and financial services report, Madam Chair, I'll answer any questions on that as our GM is on vacation today and we'll be back tomorrow. But if there's any questions, I can try to answer them.
Does anybody have any questions?
I just had a question about rural signing. I've noticed in my travels that a lot of the blue signs that we installed 10 years ago plus, they're already fading really bad. Is there any warranty on those? Some of them that are very poor shape.
There is a warranty, but it would not extend past, I believe it was a 2-year warranty, but I would have to look back. It wasn't certainly wouldn't be 10 years back for sure, but we can look into that.
To that, with those blue signs were installed, we installed them the first time. Who's responsible for installing them or maintaining them? That was the landowner, was it not?
Yeah, that bylaw or policy got changed, I believe, a year and a half ago, and now it's the responsibility of the landowner if there's any, unless it's something damage caused by county equipment or whatever, you know, snow removal equipment or whatever. So.
Yes, Alan, I have a question. I don't know, you probably have to take it back. Is the Carsland Fire, when they split up with Strathmore, there was a division of assets, and that money was, and I think I found it in the budget, but there was also donations given, so I've heard from the public, and I don't know where I'd find that or where it's listed. I was wondering if I could get a breakdown.
Yeah, I could certainly do that. I think GM Henderson will be bringing back a update on the reserves. So there's a reserve set aside for the Carsland Fire Department. So there was $185,000 put into that when the assets were split. 185 put into Carsland, 185 put into Strathmore, and then the donations, particularly for the community, for the fire hall in Carsland, were also put into the Carsland Reserve. So we'll have a balance on that. I don't have that in front of me, but I can probably get that for after lunch if you like. Yeah, may not be up to December 31st because I don't think they've reconciled year end, but I can give you a bit of an idea what's in there. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah.
Any further questions?
Just wanted to, on one thing on assessment, I don't think that Brian had put it in here, and that was there was an appeal on linear done by one of the main oil companies in the area, and that was decided. They appealed to a higher body, and they were successful in reducing the assessment $3.2 million in the county. So that's the assessed value, not the taxation amount. So just so you know, there continues to be an erosion of our assessment in the non-industrial or industrial areas. So.
Glenn?
Further to that, as a landowner in that East Country, I got a package with a few miles of Husky discontinuing pipeline, so that's in the process for next year. I don't know how many miles, I didn't add it up, but it's quite a little chunk there.
So as soon as it goes discontinuation or they stop putting fluids or liquids or gases through it, then we will lose a considerable amount of the assessed value. Once it's abandoned and it's totally gone. So that continues to happen for sure. Yeah.
Thanks for the updates. Can we have a motion to accept the financial services report?
So moved.
All in favor? There's an RFD regarding Hazard seed cleaning plant.
So this recommendation is follow-up to a request that council had approved for the Hazard seed cleaning plant provision for a loan for 10 years for $2.5 million. And it's just simply to direct administration to go through Alberta Capital Finance or Alberta Finance Capital Authority to determine rates for a loan for the Hazard seed cleaning plant in the amount of $2,500,000 for a 10-year term. That would have to come back to council for approval. Then we'd have to go through a bylaw because if it's over a 5-year term, we have to do a bylaw, and it'll have to be public consultation. There'll be basically a consultation out to the public in regards to this. It'll be totally repaid. It's basically mirrors what we did with the Strathmore seed cleaning plant. Further to this, just to let you know that Cypress County has been in contact with us and want to do the same thing, and we've had contact with Statler and a couple other counties that they're doing similar types of things. So we kind of a trendsetter back the previous councillors a few years ago, about 6-7 years ago, I think, when you guys originally supported the Strathmore one. I know way back, and Hazard had got some money from the county to or support through a loan. So keep in mind this is a loan. It's not a gimme. It's basically paid back. So.
I'll move that council direct administration to contact FCA to determine rates for a loan for the Hazard seed cleaning plant co-op Ltd in the amount of $2,500,000 over a 10-year term.
Just a comment. I had a call from the manager last Friday, I guess it was, and I stopped in to see him yesterday. He doesn't understand our process, so when our staff, when this goes through, could somebody contact him and explain to him what the process is? Because he wants to get moving on that, and he was asking me what the process was, and I said I'd have somebody get a hold of him. And
yep, most certainly. I know GM Henderson has talked to him as well as I talked to him a while ago, and it is a fairly complex process. So I'll have GM Henderson follow up with him now with this news. And originally, I think I told him we'd probably be looking at May before we'd have everything once it goes through the bylaw process, and that would be kind of the scenario. So I know they want to start construction. I basically told them start construction. I mean, this isn't holding you up. I mean, they do have some funds, so I think they can start moving forward. So.
So, Alan, I saw some options in there. Can you just explain the advantages to going through AFCA versus going through an unrestricted reserve and us doing the loan for them? Because I noticed that that would give them some more flexibility with their repayment terms.
Yes, so going through ACFA sets a really low rate
Okay.
for them, and then it would just be basically a flow-through, and it wouldn't tie up our funds at all. We have considerable amount of borrowing capacity. At this point, I think last time I checked, we were about 2.1 million is all we have for borrowing, and we've got like 40 million in borrowing capacity, so we've got really low borrowing capacity. So that's one advantage. The other advantage for us is if we need those funds in a reserve, they're not restricted or tied up for 10 years. A little different than with the library, the Marigold Library, because that one, the anticipation is they'll pay that back on a shorter term. The seed cleaning plant, they pretty much have to amortize it over a 10-year time frame. They can't pay it back in 2 years. It's just but it's up to council. If you want us, we can bring back an option further to that. But when we looked at it, we felt that AFCA was probably the best option in this case. But once we get the rates, they're all posted online. You can see them. Generally, they're pretty low. Once we get the rates, then we'll do another revaluation. But I think that's probably the best way to go. So.
Just further to that, some of the discussion yesterday that was Derek's question too, is why they couldn't go through the reserve and that. I told them that if we tie up our reserves, then we don't have the ability to use those reserves for said we don't like to do that. So he understands that. If we go, because he said, well, I'd like that other one where we just take it out of you. And I said, no. I said, we don't like to do that. So.
Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion?
I just had a question, but it has to do with the first seed cleaning plant. What I remember of that when it went through back in the day was the portion of that when they came to the county was because they had land in Strathmore and they were going to repay some of that back once that land was sold, if I remember right. And I could be wrong. And I noticed, because I have a shop next door to there, it's not even advertised for sale anymore. So I'm wondering if that asset, it's not even being utilized.
So at this point, the seed cleaning plant is still investigating what our options are with that location. There was some health and safety issues, so it's not being used for seed cleaning right now. It has been shut down, and the board is looking at options for that. Sale of it is one option, and I did ask a little bit about if that was a caveat on the loan, and I haven't gotten the details firmly on that yet. Okay.
From my recollection, it is not a caveat on the loan. I know it was discussed.
What the board thought is.
And at this point, I think we're 6-7 years into it, and they've never missed a payment. There's been never any issue there. So I would not suggest to council that you want to go down that road. I mean, that certainly was some of the talk, but they did use that facility for sending grain in those sea cans for what, 5 years or 6 years, and that was fairly profitable for them. So my recollection is it's not in the agreement, but I can reconfirm that if you like.
Yeah, just clarity, because I know it was used for quite a while and used effectively, but I noticed in their last little while it's
I think it
basically
was just
vacant.
this spring that occupational health and safety shut down the location because of some safety concerns. It is being researched for kind of diverse revenue generation. They're looking at what their options are. So the new CEO has been investigating that. I'll keep council up to date on what the board decides as we go through that process.
When we were negotiating, it was talked about, but it wasn't a requirement. It was part of their business case. And I know they were loading in Strathmore, but they've built a new facility out here. If you were to drive by the seed plant, you'll see a container loading facility there. They don't have to drag the loader around anymore. It's a permanent thing. No, I wouldn't worry about it. They're making their payments. They only got 4 years left. It wasn't one of our requirements at the time. A good customer, I wouldn't change it now, that's for sure.
Any further discussion regarding the motion on the floor regarding Hazard Seed Cleaning Co-op? All in favor of the motion? Motion is carried. We have Transportation and Agriculture report. Good morning, Mike.
Morning, Council. Yes, same to you, folks.
Did you get the building locked up last night?
I did. I came and it was actually open until 9, so it was only going to be open for an hour, but I figured you know what happens in an hour. Okay, I'll start off with the GM report here that you all have a copy of in front of you, I think. If there's any questions, feel free to ask. Just a little highlight here. You'll see that the Gleason Arena is in operation now. The ice was put in. I've heard really good feedback from the operators there. It's quite a faster system of installing the ice, and I think it's 3 or 4 days quicker to actually get the ice than it was the previous plant. So there, nothing but positivity on that end from what I hear. So we're still moving forward with looking at some of the other improvements to that building that we had committed to. So I'm hopefully bringing back just a report on that to council next month, just kind of an update on where we're at with costs and any future spending that we need to do on that.
Question, Mike, through the chair. What are we doing with that Wayne Hill and that issue down in that area? I've had a couple of calls on it.
Yeah, so through the chair, we did talk with Kneehill County before Christmas on this, both with their...
Drumheller.
Sorry, Drumheller, yes, Drumheller. I spoke with the CAO there and then also with their Public Works Department, and we actually had one of our staff meet them out there, just kind of look at the couple scenarios. I guess for everyone, all other council's information, it's basically a hill, very low used by our ratepayers, a few of their ratepayers, but it's just right adjacent to Highway 56, so there's a more traveled route fairly close to that.
Well, it's a back road for our residents, and there's quite a few in that area, the Duck Lake area, that use it as a back road, wouldn't there?
For sure, and we see the benefit in ensuring that it stays open as well. So we met with their Public Works out there and basically offered our assistance if they wanted us to maybe look at bringing some of our equipment out there. Just kind of gave them some options what we could do. And we basically left that in their court right now, waiting to hear back. I think the last I heard is they want to just see what happens over the next couple of months here, if it keeps on sliding, and they don't want to open it up quite yet. So we've reached out to them, and we're open to help if they need it.
You haven't heard if they've got any funding for that last bridge? Because they were waiting to get some funding on that last bridge.
No.
They've got a weight restriction on it now.
Yeah, through the chair, I still, that was asked of them at that same meeting, and they haven't heard anything back on that yet, so.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Mike, the Strangmere and Railway warranty. Yesterday I was informed that there was a hedge, bushes that were taken out when they put in a line at one of the residents on that street. Okay. Would I just, I told them I would bring it up to you and find out what I can do about it. Should I just email you and Ellen about that? To make sure it's on the warranty?
For sure, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the warranty, the project's completed, but there is deficiencies that we'll review in the spring here as well, so.
So by email of you?
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Just for curiosity, the bridge file at Rocky Ford there, what's the estimated time of completion? I know, I drove by there, I just saw the mountain of excavation.
Mm-hmm.
It's huge.
Yeah, so through the chair, that's the bridge 75967 here in the report. Just before Christmas, we got down to the pipe basically. And so we got the majority of the fill excavated there. So they started up on Wednesday here again, and I'm anticipating middle of the month here to get it completed.
I just think it's a good project. Anybody wants to see what these guys do, there's a lot of iron out there and a lot of excavation. It's amazing.
Yeah, through the chair, this was, we had quite the fill. I think there was 6 meters of fill down to the invert of the pipe on this. So a big hole we had to dig on that road there. So, and through the chair, we're actually looking at starting another pipe after this if conditions hold up. We have one over on just east of 13 Mile Corner there that we're hoping to get done as well, so.
Pipe, I know I've heard it in millimeters and doesn't mean much to me, but I see that pile of pipe out there. It must be 6 feet or what is it?
Sorry, you're talking
Yeah,
about on
Rockford
Rockford Road? I want to say it was 1.8 meters, yeah.
1.8 meters.
Yeah.
It's a hunk of big pipe.
So it's a good size diameter for sure. Yeah. Well, for interest, you can see we have the one down east of 13 Mile Corner, I think is a 3.3 meter pipe that we can see in the backyard here. So that is significantly bigger than that other bridge file there. It's multi-plate. Yeah. It's a good size for sure.
I'll move recommendation.
No, if there's any questions on it.
So I was asking if we're, I was wondering if we're going to get the same entertainment value.
I missed it last year. I'd love to see it.
I'll approve. Has it already been moved?
Correct.
So moved. Just a question, Mike. Is that the cost of the signs or the cost of the administration?
Yeah, through the chair, that incorporates both. The cost of signs around 300, a little bit over 300. This incorporates the actual installation of the sign as well as the post. So,
A question in regard to that too, there was no previous value for signs? Because I know I had asked a year ago or so and was told by staff that it was a $600 fee. So I'm just curious how it was worked at before.
yeah, nothing has changed in that. We looked at the actual cost of it, and it was never incorporated into the schedule fees. So that's what we're doing here is an actual cost in the fees schedule.
I don't have a problem with it, just curious because how we came about it before, so.
I just got a question, like, are these, the fee schedulers, can they be adjusted without count? I'm just on page 132, when we're talking line CR 99, which is wastewater plumbing administration, $6.11 cubic meter charge. Theoretically, we might be losing money selling water at that price. So I'm just wondering if how set in stone these prices are, because that may have to be, like, I'm not sure how we came up with that number. and how easy it is to move that number up or down, right?
So through the chair, just as everything on this schedule of fees, it's based on the bylaw. The bylaw was approved. The schedule is basically able to be revised through a resolution by council, much as I'm doing today. Just kind of revising the schedule as see fit, so.
I'm just wondering, like the bulk water sales part of things should probably substantially, in my opinion, like, should be substantially higher than what is there. But I'm not sure how we go about doing that. And
Can we kind of go with that? Maybe get staff to do a review of surrounding areas, what like Strathmore charges, things like that. Find out what bulk water rates are within the surrounding municipalities. Find out first if we're in the ballpark.
Right. Through the chair, is that primarily for bulk water, or would you like a review again of the rate structure? I just ask because we do a review every summer on these and make a recommendation to council for implementation in September of every year. So
Myself, I would like to see just the bulk water for now.
okay.
Discussion? Was bulk water assessed this summer? Was there a comparison done?
Sorry, I missed that.
Was the bulk water pricing structure assessed this summer?
It was, yes. Yeah, it was included in the utilities rate structure.
Then I'm okay with the way it is for now.
Tom, are you good with that if it was assessed this summer?
yeah, like, I just don't want to get too far
Far
down.
off.
We're going to have to move to, I believe it's council's will to start moving to full utilities recovery. So these numbers are going to have to be looked at every year. So yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
What line?
I can't see it either.
132.
Right? Okay.
I think it's key when you look at that too is how much a water truck holds cubic meter wise versus that is not a whole lot of money for what they're getting, how fast they're getting it, and the utilities and then infrastructure that is involved to put that there available, that service rate is very costly to do.
We need a motion for the proposed schedule of fee changes. Thanks, Donna. All in favor? Motion carried. We have the Protective Emergency and Fire Services report in our package. Good morning.
Sorry, old Army injury. So. Morning, Council.
Good morning.
Happy New Year's. It's my first time, so please be gentle.
We will, we promise.
All right, so putting in the highlight reel for November for protective services, our primary drivers for the peace officers has been bylaw and animal control. We have a huge problem with dogs, and that seems to be the constant flavor of the day.
Don't call him.
Don't call it? Gotcha. And of course, with violation types, it's always speeding. If we do get control of primary highways, that number will probably expand in the future, but depending how the province wants to go with that will determine how we progress. With the month of November, we had members do their firearms familiarization, their annual 8 rounds, so they should be good. And they also recertified in defensive control tactics as well too. They continued on, like as I said, primarily with animal control issues in the Gleason area is our big one. Not pointing at those. We did have one officer attend the Emergency Management Committee meeting where they discussed the emergency management plan, and we also had one attend a disaster exercise in Rocky View County, along with the fire personnel as well too. These disaster trainings are going to become more and more common with the changes to Bill 8, and we'll be conducting these ourselves in the future as well. And they also attended Remembrance Day ceremonies throughout the county as well too. Under fire, for November, our leading call types would be medical, followed by motor vehicle collisions. Call volume is actually quite low. I'm glad to see that. Fire is also still working collaboratively with the town of Strathmore, with Wheatland West, and still looking at our service delivery models now that we have the bridge back in service to see what we can still do working together in a partnership. Fire department in Strathmore brought us along to include inspections on cannabis retail. This is a very new beast for those of us that do inspections to go through. I attended a conference in Edmonton on this, and a lot of special considerations moving forward for us as the authority having jurisdiction in taking care of how these people operate within our communities. Wheatland West, Carsland, and Gleason completed their WMIS, respectful workplace training, and their audiometric training, correction testing. Departments have finished their national carry compliance and took a refresher on pre-trip and brake check inspections. So that brings us into OH&S compliance for 2018. Paperwork comes in constantly from Hussar, Wheatland West, Carsland, and Gleason. Our OH&S audit inspections were done for Wheatland West and the Carsland halls. Both were found to be compliant, which is a good thing. Under emergency management, again, Judy and I believe Mac attended as well for the mass casualty. And like I said, these are going to happen more and more. We're going to be doing paper exercises as well as tabletops, and then once every 4 years we're going to be required to do a full-scale activate everyone type of exercise. And that in a nutshell is protective services.
Tom?
I just got one question on the totals by station on page 137. There's nothing in Carsland. Is Carsland and Wheatland West, are they considered the same operation?
Good morning, through the chair. No, they're not. They're separate individual stations. We had nothing reported for Carsland during that month.
And Rosebud, I think, had a quiet month too.
Just a
Through the
comment
chair,
to
you're correct.
on the daily pre-trip inspections. I think that's critical to note. This is a change, right? It's required that those vehicles are checked every day, whether they're used or not, if I'm correct. Okay.
That will be correct. That's an update to the training. We used to be able to just do a post-trip and leave it as such, but now we have to do this daily.
Just a question where things are at with the town of Strathmore. Have there been formal discussions around collaboration or coordination of services between the fire departments?
Through the chair, we have had casual discussions for sure. What brought forth the change was the bridge being out. And since then, the two departments have been working closely with each other. So they go to each other's calls. For structure fires within the town of Strathmore, Wheatland West is on standby. For any motor vehicle collisions along Highway 1, they both respond. So I would like to begin formal conversation. And the request has come from Chief West to meet with myself and probably with our new GM to start discussions about the two stations working closely together.
Is that something you would like council to discuss with Town of Strathmore Council or not yet?
Through the chair, I think at this point we just should have some initial discussion. It's been such a positive relationship and they are really enjoying training with each other and being together. It's so much so that when we suggested that they separate, that Wheatland West goes back to its own hall and they begin operations out of there again, the members were really upset. They really like being with Strathmore. So I think if I could just meet with Chief West initially to see what this looks like going forward and then include council, I think it's critical to make sure council knows this is where we're going. But I think we should have some conversations so that you have some context if that works for you.
Absolutely.
Should we have a motion to support that?
I don't think you want one yet. We appreciate the work that you're doing on that. Thank you. Is there any further questions or discussion regarding the Protective Services report?
Just, there's a mention here about the transfer agreement with Clooney and Gleason, just wondering the current update and where that is.
Through the chair. I've been on holidays until yesterday, so nothing has really progressed since we last talked. I think with my reading, and you were here for that, with Mr. Nelson, who's the president of the Clooney Association, he seemed very pleased that we were going to start to do initial repairs on the hall, at least take a look at it. So today, MAC is out there with Bryce, and they're looking with the construction company. So they're starting that today, which I think is very positive. It's just been 3 days, really, that staff has been back at work, so.
Thanks for that update. Any other questions? Can we have a motion to accept the report? Thanks, Scott. All in favor? Motion is carried. There's an RFD for the first reading of the Fire Board bylaw.
Good morning, Council. Happy New Year.
Good morning.
We have a request for a fire board bylaw. And this was discussed with Council in our planning and priorities meeting. So if you're comfortable, would you like me to go through the bylaw again, or do you want to just move to the first reading?
Council's wishes.
I've got a question before we go to first reading, and it's to do with the composition of the fire board and points 3.2 and 3.5. It says that the board shall be composed of representatives of the fire association, up to one member each. I don't have a problem with that. But 3.5 states that members of the fire board shall not be members of a volunteer fire department. And we've got some departments out there where you won't have a representative because every member is a fire. Dallam, and I'm not sure about Hazar, you might have. So Dallam has got one member that is not a volunteer firefighter anymore, but I don't think he would sit on that committee either, so.
Maybe Stuart or Judy could give the reasons why that's like that.
Well, I understand why it's like that.
Well, no, just that everybody's on the same page, yeah.
Through the chair, I've set up a similar system to this in the previous employer. Typically why we do this is if you have an active firefighter on a board that's looking at capital, you don't get that completely objective view, and at times they can slant towards certain types of apparatus, certain manufacturers. They're not necessarily cost effective or the smartest buy. That's why we try to remove that little bit of, well, I'm going to play with it, so I want this one.
I understand the reason under. I'm just saying that we have fire departments out there that their association is their fire department. Dallam, their association is all volunteer firefighters. So under this, you would not have a member sitting on that board from the Dallam, and yet you're saying that every association needs a member on the board.
Through the chair, if it's amenable, we could add, if possible, to that. Because I think you're exactly right. You know, the one person that is on the board has long since retired from fire, and in Dallam's case, they are all firefighters on the board. So I think that might be, you know, an amenable.
It's a good compromise.
Yeah.
Well, this is council's bylaw, so if you want to make changes.
Yeah, if the wording change, if at all possible, or put a minimum on there that no more than, say, 2 active firefighters can be involved in the board, so that you don't get an back to what you're saying, you don't get an overwhelming vote on the one side, but you still, because I think there's 2 departments out there where you're going to find that same issue.
Through the chair, I strongly concur with what Stuart's saying. I think we all, and as a firefighter, I like to choose my own toys as well, and they're not toys, my own equipment to use. And so if we put, if possible, I think it would cover off for both Dallam and, is it Rockyford that you're worried about? Correct. Is that amenable to council?
I just have a comment. I understand where the concern is coming from, but this is an advisory board. Voting structure wouldn't really matter. It's consensus is the only way that one can, they can advise us as council. So whether there's a firefighter there, if you have one person that disagrees with that firefighter, I mean, that you're, with it being such a strong independent, set in independence with the consensus, I wouldn't worry about having firefighters on there because we'll have 3 council members, and I don't see a problem. And because it will be hard for a lot of the associations to come up with it. I don't, it's still not exactly what I had in mind, but I think it's better than nothing. And I think having those firefighters on there with it being a just advisory board, I mean, I don't think it's going to be an issue.
Yeah, through the chair, it's a good start. I don't have any issue with the rest of it, so I would just suggest that under 3.5, that if the wording was changed to the members of the fire board, where possible, shall not be members of the fire department. That's what you're, that way it opens it up so that they can. And you're right, Jason, it's.
And I mean, even the board, it's like I say, it's advisory. They're not making any decisions. If they can push for their equipment, and the final say is with council. So, I mean, they can push as hard as they want, but when it comes back to us, we'll have to make the decision. So you can have 5 firefighters on there, and it's a consensus board, so those 5 don't hold majority.
Further discussion? I do have some textual amendments that I'll send to Alan, and then the only other feedback that I've heard that I'll just bring publicly is from some of our adjacent municipalities. The villages have expressed concern that they don't hold a seat on the fire committee, and I indicated that through our conversations we had talked about the Wheeland Regional Partnership as a kind of a vehicle to bring those concerns forward. Alternatively, I said that I would ask if there, and I assume that there would be opportunities for them to request to present to the Fire Services Board or the Fire Board if there were intermunicipal concerns. Is that a correct assumption?
Correct, I believe, and I don't know off the top of my head which bullet point it is, but we can have guests attend this board meeting.
Is there any further discussion? Glenn?
I've heard the same concerns, and I agree with the 3.5 because all our rurals, Rosebud is the same, no different than Dallam. There was concern they would like to have a huge board, what they used to be when we were doing the fire service thing 3 years ago. But there's no reason or no why the new fire board can't have the same subcommittee and listen to everybody come in at the same time if that's what they so wish to do. Do you understand what I mean? Like we have our fire committee with 6 members on it, or whatever we're going to have. But their effort to gain information from the other municipalities or that's appointments that come to that meeting, no different than appointments come to council, right? So it keeps decision-making more focused with this group, but they can gather information in whatever way they feel is appropriate. So it makes them make the decision, which helps us. Like what Jason said, if they come in here and they want this different fire apparatus, I have a hard time voting against it because I don't know, right? I can say no or yes. I know that's my preview, but if it's recommended to me through this board, I don't have any expertise in it, so I have to pretty well stay with that. But this board is expected to get that expertise and no different than we, right? So this is our vehicle, and they have to have a, right? If we can explain it to them that way, I'm thinking it's.
Well, and one of the perspectives I explained to you is the board is currently at 10 members with the 5 fire associations that we currently have, the 2 citizens at large and the 3 members of council, which is already a fairly large board. And then the other point that I outlined was just what I heard from council, is that we have to be cognizant that we're representing fire service in the entire municipality. And right now, as it stands, it is somewhat weighted towards still that eastern side where we do have our fire associations, which I really highly value that input from those fire associations. But I just explained that we had some feedback from some of our municipal partners about proposals and ideas for the composition of this board. I just said that our council needed to take into consideration that we need that representation from our entire western side of our municipality that doesn't have any fire associations. So that was some of the considerations that I explained we took into account when we were discussing this, when you guys were helping us develop this. So if that's still where council's at, I just wanted to share that that was some of the feedback that I've gotten, and Glenn has heard it as well.
So through the chair, my understanding with this, when I went through this, was if that board decided to bring any, they can bring in expertise anywhere they want and discuss the issues with them, and so that when they bring the report to us, they've had all that discussion. And this is fine, that this doesn't eliminate them from doing that. It lets them bring in any information, any expertise they want to talk to get the information they need. So, yeah.
Is there any further questions or discussion? Are we prepared to do first reading? With the amendment to 3.5. Okay. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried. Yes, absolutely. We'll actually take a 10-minute break because we have an 11 o'clock appointment. So we'll reconnect. I have a late addition to the agenda if council would consider just a brief in-camera discussion regarding a meeting that Glenn and I had with Rocky Ford Fire. And Rocky Ford Fire Association and the Village of Rocky Ford. Okay. Alan, what FOIP would that be? 6? Okay. Sorry, what FOIP?
Oh, sorry, 16.
Let's go through correspondence. We just have the one piece of correspondence from Drumheller Provincial Detachment, their statistics report. There were some interesting year comparisons there. Alan, did you want to speak to that at all, or no? Okay.
I'll move that we accept correspondence as information.
Any questions? All in favor? Motion is carried. Alan had an update on the reserves for Donna's question regarding Carsland Fire.
Yes, so current to the end of December 2018, without accrual of interest, there is $285,796.63 in the Carsland Fire Reserve. 285,796.63.
And 185 was the...
From the delineation. With that, we'll move into our in-camera session. Yeah, thank you, Alan. And we'll probably be back in public session at 11:30 with an appointment.
With McConnell, I work in the Strathmore Books constituency office in Strathmore. And over the past 3 years, we've had constituents come in with concerns with the 901 and 22X intersection. That because it's on an angle and not marked with a light, a lot of people have been finding it extremely difficult to navigate foggy weather, winter weather conditions. And they're wondering if there's anything that can be done for putting a street lamp in that area, so it's a little bit easier to know where the intersection's coming up. Yeah. I guess they call it the 901 when we talked with Alberta
The
Transportation.
901, turns into the 22X. That's the same road.
Yes.
So then it would be where it intersects with 817.
Yes, yeah. So in the past, we had reached out to Alberta Transportation, but their comment was that because the number 1 highway was going to be rerouted, they wanted to put things on hold. But we have seen quite a few constituents coming in the last year especially, wondering if there's anything to be done to put a street light there.
Ellen, can you speak to that at all?
Yes, so Alberta Transportation, we have talked to them in the past, and they certainly would entertain that, but they will not pay for that cost. So I think probably what council may want to do is put together a letter, send it to Alberta Transportation, and request that lighting be put in there, and see what kind of response you get back. But that's the response that staff has had. We first dealt with this, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, administratively, and that's kind of where it's at. The costs, I don't know, but I believe it's if quite a few $1,000s to put a light in there. There is a couple poles there, and there is power there, but to run it and that's going to be a few $1,000s. So, and I don't know the exact cost, but I think at this time, I think a letter to Alberta Transportation, perhaps MLA Fildebrand's office could support that letters in some fashion. With that, I totally agree. It's an intersection that could utilize some lighting for the safety of the residents traveling on that road. It is a fairly busy road too. So.
Well, through the chair, just a question. I hate lights on the number 1 or the 22X or the 22 or whatever they call it. Why wouldn't it make more sense if there's an issue with that one that they eliminate the crossover? You go down a mile and you can come back in and come onto that 901 there, or you can come off the 817. But where the 817 goes south to Carsland, you can come straight through to the 901, right? Yep. You don't need to go down to that make that jog and come in there. It'd make more sense to me if they eliminate that crossing, so that you can only enter it from the south or from the north. You can go either east or west, but you can't go across it.
Yeah.
And yeah.
West and go down 2 miles and then go back to the 817 again.
But are we talking about lights, or are we talking about a red blinking light, like at the, just a street lamp?
Just to have a lit intersection so you don't miss that, because it looks like every other intersection when you
Or
drive
you're
by
just
because
talking
of the
lighting for the
configuration.
intersection, not a
Yeah,
stop?
not
Oh.
stoplights.
I thought you were talking about putting a red light on.
No, we're not Strathmore here. We don't put lights at every intersection.
Do we want to entertain a motion? Does somebody want to make a motion for council to send a letter to Alberta Transportation?
I just have questions. Is there going to be, I don't remember, but I thought there was something mentioned of the 901 and the 817 being rerouted in some sense?
Yes, that's correct. There is a reconfiguration of that intersection, so what would end up happening is basically it would be a flow, rather than that sharp curve, it would be a more gentle curve and then tie back in. So that would take place at some point in the future. I don't know when. I don't believe it's on the 5-year plan from my recollection, because didn't we talk to Darren about that in Edmonton?
I think last meeting we had up at Edmonton, we talked to Darren, nothing on the plans and nothing about the lights, except if we paid for them. So if we wrote a letter to the minister, maybe that would. I'll make a motion that we prepare a letter, send it to the transportation and ask for lights.
Discussion?
Be sent to the Minister of Transportation and CC to MLA Fildebrand's office, and then hopefully Derek could support that in the legislature.
I do agree with that motion. A friend of mine was killed about 4 years ago on it, and I think even if they aren't willing, I wouldn't hesitate to put up the lights ourselves.
when you're driving east on that road and you come on that corner and you want to turn to go to Strathmore, your car is going this way and your headlights are not shining on the corner. That's the issue. If you were going straight, you could see it, but you just zoom right on by it. Or
Yeah, so further to that, if council so chooses, if there's support for that, we could get a budget put together. I thought there was, but unfortunately, I don't think there is one, but we could get a budget put together. But
So there's a motion on the floor to send a letter to Alberta Transportation. Further discussion?
Part of that letter that goes to transportation, are we asking them to give us a cost breakdown of what it would be to put lighting there as part of the?
my feeling is to say, make the request that lighting should be put in there for the safety of residents. As Councillor Wilson stated, there has been some serious instances there in the past. There hasn't been in the last couple of years that I'm aware of. And I think the residents have identified that as well, and MLA Fildebrandt's office has identified that. I think that would be the first step. And
The
then see where
costing
it
would
goes.
come later?
I think so. I think so. The anticipation that I think we're going to get based on what our discussions with administration in the past has been, yeah, we'll support that. Needs to be built to a certain standard. You guys pay for it. So we'll get the numbers worked out on our side, kind of outside of that realm, if that makes any sense. But.
Any other questions or discussion? All in favor of Glenn's motion? Motion is carried. Thank you for coming in, Elizabeth. Well, we will call a recess until our 1 o'clock appointment.